Hello everyone, it's Sky here. Today we are going to be discussing about the most recent Xboost update and also the general direction the game changed toward. We will include some callback from the past as well. However, we won't be talking too much about individual unit dominating meta. We will be focusing on the system update and feature change affecting the meta. Just to start off, I'd like to bring to the table that I have suspicion that the EXVS dev is trying to move the game toward more active play and less neutral play. They seem to also want to reward quick reaction play over slow thought out time attack and safe play. Before we start talking about Xboost, let's move back to full boost. During full boost, it's quite clear that the game is focusing on range play, with some very few melee suit able to break through into the top slot. This is due to various factors. First, the fact that the main in full boost version is quite tracky compared to the one we have now in Inbound, which makes it easier to land a shot on a moving target and even easier to punish a landing unit. A variety of red lock range is also present during this version. We have units like X2, Versago, and Xs, just to name a few, that have very long red lock range, making them able to stay safe far away and still able to stay relevant to the game. This means a unit that needs to move close to deal damage will have to start dodging from very far back, which also means they have more distance to cover while dodging, which can be challenging. Despite that, some players still manage to pull through in playing melee unit, and that is very amazing in range meta period. For burst, we have Assault Burst and Blast Burst. With Assault Burst is mostly for melee and aggressive unit, while Blast Burst is for more shooter unit. Despite this, Blast Burst is always more popular than Assault Burst, again reflecting heavy range meta. 2000 cost is also extremely efficient during this period as they balance to be quite strong, and some can be as strong or very close to 2500 cost, making the 3000-2000 cost the most popular cost combination at this time. This again reflects safe play over riskier play with the 2500 cost unit. We can conclude that full boost is a period of mostly safe defensive range meta. Before moving on, I'm going to let you know that I will skip the base version of each implementation. As I skip over EXVS Vanilla, I will also skip over base Maxi Boost and base EXVS2, due to them usually being an experimental phase in the development. So to continue, Inbound arrived with a lot of change and balance being made. It is just like full boost, a very popular version of the EXVS series. This time around, the devs seem to want to nerf the range dominance meta and reduce the tracking of main across the board, with Beam Magnum main being the most noticeable change. Not only does the overall range tracking reduce, the red lock seems to also be shortening for most units. Quite a clear noticeable change can be seen on X2, Versago, and Xs again, to name a few. This overall smaller the play area of the player, as players have to be closer to each other to start dealing damage. Most melee units also gain more HP and damage combo, allowing them to trade efficiently against other units. The red burst, now called Fighting Burst, also give other benefits that just plain melee stat increase, such as guard break properties and being able to cancel from range into melee. The boost bonus and recovery have also been balanced between all bursts to have Fighting Burst benefit the most from set stat increase. This helps out melee user and other aggressive playstyle type a lot, and you can see more variety in playstyle compared to full boost day. Again, I just want to be clear here that we are talking about the general system and overall unit change. We are not talking about which unit dominate meta, which in this case would be Reborn and GPO3 comp, which largely play the getaway style. Apart from this balance, Inbound introduced a lot of units to fast fall cancel. Technically, fast fall have already existed since EXVS Vanilla, but they have only been tested more on multiple units during full boost. And in Inbound, large group of unit is now equipped with some sort of fast fall. This adds more depth to the core aspect of resource management and punish mechanic. This creates more variety of the end result than just the normal you land you get punished gameplay. Next to the usual blue and red burst, the dev also added an additional green burst or extend burst. This burst allows the player to flip off combo even with just half gauge, and generally give the user a defensive stat buff. This really is a great addition to give players who choose to play safe their own burst to pick. Again, players are generally playing closer to each other, so more damage is being dealt at faster rate in general due to overall shortened red lock. So having a green burst really helps out overall balance and still allow the player who choose to play safe an option to do so. Additionally, the current Inbound unit roster is full of a variety of units, and I'm not talking in terms of quantity of the unit, I'm talking about a different style that different unit cover. Some are simple to play, where players only have to master a timing of a few too. Some are really technical, where players have to memorize different input and perfect the execute timing to pull off the units. With that being said, Whether you might be a player who has good reaction or a player that work hard to have your muscle memorize the complicated combo loop, all the way to player that just want to take it simple and focus on making big decision call to progress their gameplay, there are several units that you can pick from. Lastly, I want to talk about the projectile property of M1 unit. Most of the projectile in M1 are dodgeable by boost dashing alone. This of course is also depend on how good your unit mobility is, but I'll say for average mobility, most unit will be able to dodge most things with just boost dashing alone. With a few too that player is forced to step or guard to avoid the damage. I can't pinpoint exactly how many two there are, but just from personal experience, there is just about the right balance amount of the two type. This then allow player to boost dash most of the time, and they have to be ready to occasionally sidestep or guard. Overall, it is a nice balance between letting player having it easy and putting them up to micro-intensive tasks sometimes. With that being said, this is probably many player favorite version of the game. Before we continue, I'd like to make a quick turn and talk about the bad boy of the series, Exvs. So after M1 hit the arcade, the next thing that the team is working on is Exvs. Being the odd one out and hitting only the console market without going through the usual arcade phase, the game is also set to release worldwide on the same day as Japanese version with a full English menu and subtitle support. Exvs again being the first base title such as EXVS Vanilla and base Maxi Boost. The dev took more risks and trying out new things. This time around, they are trying to introduce the Versus series to the world, and the dev is tasked to make the game that will convert English Gundam fan into Versus fan. The EXVS series is pretty complicated and are full of features. It can be hard to explain all the fastfall, boost recovery, and other unique technique to first-time player. Since the game is unique to its genre, for example, if you play first-person shooter game and then you move to another first-person shooter game, you're going to be able to bring quite a bit of what you learn to another. But for Versus game, it is pretty much unique to its own. With that in mind, the devs try to dumb down the game a lot by making fastfall tech a one-button press, removing any sort of air stall tech for player to clearly understand when someone is out of boost, and put assist on its own button press as well. I'm not going to go into commenting if this is bad or a good idea because it is not the point of the video. So I'm going to go straight to the meta gameplay. During this period, the step boost dive is dominant movement option because of how easy it is to abuse. Hitting someone became very difficult. All you have to do is occasionally step boost dive, go to the ground for a safe landing. So how do players get punished? In this era, players are punished usually for positioning mistake, such as being too aggressive by placing themselves in the middle of two players, making them vulnerable to crossfire. There are also only a few elite units that can deal damage consistently in this environment, with those units being units that possess two that can hit step diving unit, such as MA Gero, some sort of fence, whip, to name a few. To summarize, the Exvs meta is a meta of slow big play and slow decision making, where the majority of the match are players step diving and waiting for two that can hit player to come back up. Or you can look at it as the longest neutral game style type of meta. I just want to put emphasis here that compared to M1, where the player has to most of the time boost dash and occasionally step high tracking projectile, the game has dumbed down to all players have to learn is to step dive. It is pretty much the answer to everything. So mostly what players have to focus on is big play timing such as burst time and positional decision as to when and where to push and when to pull back. Despite that sounding bad, it benefits me and player with similar quality a lot. Since I'm not very good at pressing button accurately to always input actual fastball combination or having fast reaction to also put up a guard or change to step dashing. This version as intended has the lowest barrier entrance to the player to hit high level play, and we all know how Exvs ended in terms of reception from the core fan, but we won't be talking about that here. Fast forward to the present, I hope you are still alive, and thanks so much for listening all the way to this point. I know we have been going through many versions, but now we are finally arriving at the Xboost version of the game. I will be talking about general Xboost change before talking about the latest patch. Xboost adjustment projectile tracking back to similar to full boost day. With that, they also make more scroll beat come out faster, causing player to react to it. One would think this is the dev trying to buff range playstyle again, but we have to look at another change as well. With the improved tracking of the projectile, we also get reduced in-game timer down to 210 seconds. This actually forces the player to play more aggressive, especially this being the arcade. If the timer run out, then both teams lose, which means all the players are off the machine and everyone lose. I guess the arcade win technically since it will rotate into the next set of coin. It is also good to note that red lock are still not as far as full boost day, and are more similar to M Day, forcing players to be closer to each other to stay relevant. This results in highly demanding active play. Despite you are playing range or melee, aggressive or defensive, you are going to be in conflict with another player nearly all the time. Slow neutral play and far range play is becoming more of a thing from the past. Most of the units now also get an overhaul on moveset, and many of them have fast fall and are equipped with both CSA and CSP, or generally just restack with multiple moves. You remember some units have side up, down up, side AC? Now pretty much most units are loaded with those two, which allow the player to survive in this hyperactive meta. However, you only survive if you're good and are accurate with your input and utilize this tool well, and you got to think fast and be more reactive as well. You can't sit far back waiting to punish anymore. You have to always actively be reactive and constantly input this evasive maneuver. Again, with the overall projectile tracking and introduction of high tracking tools of most units, step dash become very extremely crucial, and one would not survive anymore from just boost dashing alone most of the game. Xboost also introduced a new burst feature called cross burst, where if both players burst at the same time, they will get an additional benefit. This also discourages players from slow burst timing, where the player will slowly use burst one by one to trade resource rather than both at the same time. At this point, I feel like the dev is favoring fast hyperactive play and rewarding players who can input fast and accurate over the player that like to play safe and slow. Whether that benefits you as a player or not really depends on which kind of player you are. Me personally, I'm not very good at inputting fast and accurate, and I prefer a slow drawn out neutral game, where I can slowly assess the situation before I choose to move in to make my big play. Of course, this is not about me, and I will have to adapt if the dev continue to change the game toward this value. The most recent patch seems to support this suspicion even more, despite the increase in timer to 230 per second, which gives players more time to close out the games. The overall red lock of all units is now shortened even further. There is also a change where a draw or double loss screen is now being replaced with a new end screen, where the game will calculate the total point and the team with the most point will be hailed winner. This also supports more aggressive play, as more points are given to the player who make an impact than the player that mostly sits safely far away. I do like this change though. I thought it was very cool since no one really liked the double loss screen anyway. So what do you guys think about all of this? Are you happy that the game is favoring fast reaction and accurate input over slow and safe decision making? Can you keep up with how demanding the game will become to play at the highest level? Let me know in the comment section down below. One thing for sure though, this change will make the games more interesting and fun to spectate, and I think that's a great thing for drawing in more fans and moving the game toward esports. Also, special thanks to Jeff, Walima, and NeoP for proofreading the concept of this video. Without them, I would not be able to release the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching my video. If you'd like to support me, feel free to subscribe for more videos. And I also stream on Twitch every day, 9 AM PST time. If you have time or have any question, don't hesitate to stop by so we can have a chat.